Coming up tonight on your favorite podcast, my good pal Allison drops by. She's been writing like crazy, but we're going to do some football tonight. Her and I are going to try to predict all the big division winners. We're going to try to go through the league a little bit and make some predictions, make some calls on MVP, first coach fired, maybe the most underrated team coming in, most overrated team coming in. Bold declarations. And again, is it based on anything? No, not really. Just us guessing. Based on what we saw last year, based on what we're seeing already in training camp, which isn't much. So we'll figure it out from there. Allison's got some thoughts. I got some thoughts. We probably agree on some things, probably disagree on some things. We will see how it goes. So we will pick some division winners, pick some last place teams. We probably won't go like team by team, but certainly get the division winner and maybe talk about who might struggle in each of those divisions this year. Should be interesting to watch and or listen to, I suppose you could say. Allison, me, next on the pod. Yeah, that's right. It's the Tim Anderson Podcast. I'm Tim. That's my buddy Allison. Across the way from me on the other side of this computer screen. Delightful as always. Rocking the specs. I had to get glasses myself this summer. It's a new thing for me. Allison wears it better than me. Respect that. Allison, my friend, it's so good to see you. How you been?
Oh, I've been good. I'm ready to talk about some football today.
Absolutely. I'm ready for you to talk football today. This is going to be fun for us, I think. This one will be... This is a little different because obviously we've done AFC over-unders with Ryan and Zach, and we'll do NFC over-unders probably this weekend. But this is different. You and I are going to look at division winners. We're going to look at possible MVP predictions. We're going to look at first coach fired, all that fun stuff, right? The prediction stuff that you and I are going to be on record for at the end of the year. We can look back and see if we were light years wrong or if we nailed it and we were pretty damn accurate.
I'm ready.
We get to test your acumen, your football knowledge, as it were. Because that's really what this is all about. This is really just, it's not about me being wrong. I'm wrong all the time. This is about you, one of my football experts, coming on the pod and being tested. So here we go. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to go through division by division and try to figure out who the division winners are going to be. And then we're going to try to see if we can piece the playoff teams together. The rule of thumb is, obviously there are 14 teams that make the playoffs, but the rule of thumb has been about 6 to 7 teams who make the playoffs the year before don't make it the next year. So there's like a 50% churn on playoff teams every single year. And it's really like clockwork. It's amazing how that works. So we're going to try to look through and see who we would pick as our playoff teams today and see who's out from last year, who's in, who do we think is better, who takes a step back, that kind of thing. So it should be kind of a fun one for us to check. By the way, Allison, if you want to look out for her, Allison Wonchoba at Medium or .medium.com. You can find her there. Recent article talks about her trip to the Kamala Harris rally. So if you're curious to hear her travels and the things that she observes just from a distance, I think there's some good stuff in there for you. You've been out writing a lot lately, and I think people need to go check your stuff. So,
for the record, if you don't want political stuff to the listeners out there, I also did an article about my recent Metallica concert. So something a little bit more less heated, I suppose. More fun.
You mix it up. Yeah, you mix it up. You'll do some Metallica. You'll do a little bit of everything. And it's okay that you like your politics. It's fine. It's not like you're out there. You're not stumping. This isn't a political. It gets political on this pod occasionally, and it's okay if you went to a Harris rally. I don't think there's a crime in that. Not that I'm aware of. Anyway. All right. Let's start with your kind of old college stomping grounds, the AFC East. I know that you became very familiar with that division over your time in upstate New York. When we look at this division, the teams that are there right now, odds-wise, I'll just give you the odds, and then you can just kind of tell me what your thought process is for a division, and then I'll join you. The Jets are plus 160 to win the division. The Bills are plus 195. The Dolphins are plus 210. Those are pretty good odds, pretty similar odds with those three teams. And then the Patriots are plus 2,600. So if we want to break this down, like those three teams seem to obviously be the three teams. A lot of people think all three could make the playoffs. I don't think all three will. because I think they got to beat up on each other too much. But where do you see this division breaking down, and where do you want to go with it?
So I think that the Dolphins are going to win the division unless they really crap the bed, which they did last year with all those injuries and everything. Buffalo could pull it off, but Buffalo is really fickle. They're really fickle. They either pump the gas hard or they too crap the bed. So it's kind of a toss-up between those two teams, and it has been for a really long time. Now, I hear things about the Jets. You know, if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, they could really kick some ass. But the thing is, Aaron Rodgers is coming off an Achilles injury, and he's in his 40s. So to put so much emphasis on Aaron Rodgers basically saving the Jets, I don't see it. But do I think that they're going to be absolutely awful and be last in the division or anything? I don't know. Again, it's a toss-up between them and the Patriots, too, because with the Patriots, you're seeing like rookie season for a head coach, for a quarterback. It's not looking great for them. But again, this is like testing the waters kind of for them.
It's interesting because I think you've hit on it, that those three teams that we've mentioned, I think let's just agree that New England's going to take dead last in this division. New England might win 4 games all season if they're lucky. And they didn't look terrible against the Commanders the other day, but I mean, that's again, it's preseason, and I'm not going to put a lot of stock into that. I don't think they're a very good team. Those 3 teams, though, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Bills, I feel like they all could be really good and they all could be really bad. It really just depends on health, but also just like vibes and whether and who gets off to a good start and all of that. I have the Jets winning this division. And the only reason I do is I don't want to say I'm buying the Aaron Rodgers stuff, because I'm not. I guess I am to a certain extent, but I think they have the best defense. I think they've upgraded the offensive line. If the quarterback's healthy, I think he's, good enough to win a bunch of games. And late in the season, I'm going to hitch my wagon to them winning the grinded out games in December. The ones you got to win 21-17, those kinds of things. The Bills, I feel like I think their window's shut. Like, I don't think they're going to stink. Like, the Bills aren't going to win 6 games or anything like that. They're going to be a good team because they got Josh Allen. As long as they got him, they're going to be good. But you get the feeling like the window closed, don't you? Like, their best chance was a couple years ago, and they're just not as good as they were a few years ago. And Miami hasn't proven to me that they can win a big game in December. So if you have to ask me to rank it out, I'm going to take the Jets first. I'd take the Dolphins second, and they'd probably make it as a wild card team. And I'd take the Bills to miss the playoffs, and I'll take the Patriots to miss the playoffs. So do you like the Bills?
Well, okay, I agree with your points on the Bills. Here's what I've always disliked about the Bills. I guess disliked is a strong word, but a strong weakness about the Bills that is going to come and bite them in the butt sooner rather than later. They depend almost too much on Josh Allen. Like, I feel, you have an elite quarterback and you use that to almost as a crutch after a certain point. Now, granted, they have good weapons on their team. It's not like Josh Allen is the only one on there, but you see it, you have Josh Allen running the ball and being an absolute bulldozer. And we've said it before. You've certainly said it before. Sean McDermott, they can't keep him and Josh Allen as a team and expect results. Like, I feel like Josh McDermott is at the very precipice of getting fired season after season after season, and we're just waiting for the shoe to drop. And it's like, okay, is this going to be the year? As far as the Dolphins, here's the thing. Of all the 3 teams that you mentioned in the AFC East, they are the most steady, in my opinion. As far as how they've transitioned over the offseason, the Bills lost Stephon Diggs. The Jets, they're kind of up in the air on how they could be this year's.
It's a lot of new pieces with the Jets. You're right about that. And Salah's unproven. You're right. Salah's an unproven coach. There's no question about that.
They could be this year's Detroit Lions if we want to go there. Like the surprise, maybe. I mean, we're really thinking maybe, but.
And I like the Dolphins' weapons. Like the Dolphins have a good running game. I like, the Achane Mostert combination's really good. Obviously you like Tyreek Hill, you like Waddle. They paid Tua a lot of money. The coach might be the best coach in the division, but I don't know. There was something about that loss to Kansas City last year in the playoffs and then the year before to Buffalo, which says if these guys don't win this division outright, they have no chance in a playoff game. And I haven't seen, and they've let games get away. They let games that are winnable get away. And I can't buy it yet. But sure, if the Jets take injuries and the Bills can't replace Stephon Diggs and James Cook isn't the player they thought he was going to be, then yeah, Miami could win this division. And if they win the division and they host a playoff game, then I think it's a different conversation. It could go a completely different direction. So your Miami pick could be absolutely spot on. I'll just take the Jets, and I think Miami will make it as a wild card.
Okay,
let's go. But we're off and running. Let's go to the AFC North then. Let's do AFC North. I'll lay out the odds for the AFC North. Actually, I take that back. Let's go AFC South since it's next in line. Let's go AFC South. AFC South, here are the odds. Texans are plus 105. The Jags are plus 270. The Colts are plus 310. And the Titans are plus 950. I agree the Titans are the worst of the four. I don't know if you concur with that, but I agree with the odds. The Titans look to me to be a pretty bad team. We said in the over-under that we thought they would be another 4-win or a 5-win outfit. I think that's probably the case. So that leaves a 3-horse race. And everybody seems to have different opinions about these three teams. So, what do you see?
So the Colts got an interesting draft pick this year in, oh my gosh, what is Laiatu Latu? Is that his name? Pardon me.
Your guess, do try. We'll call Ryan. He can confirm it for us later.
Yeah. They had the most promising draft pick, in my opinion, out of all these teams. So we are going to see them wet their whistle with that. With the Texans and with the Jaguars, again, it's going to be a prove it kind of year. So the Texans, we're seeing the second year for CJ Stroud. And, the second year is really, again, I think you heard about it in the AFC Over Under podcast, where that is really going to prove whether CJ Stroud is it. If he's good again this year. And for all intents and purposes, I think he will be good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Will they be playoff material? I think that is up in the air. That'll be interesting.
I think he could have a great year and they could take a step back. That's very, very possible, right? It's possible that he throws for 4,500 yards and they go 9-8 and they don't make the playoffs because they are still pretty young. It's still a young coach. And I think as Zach pointed out, and I think he's right, a lot of teams will give you that bump, that first year bump. And then there's a regression to the mean, right? There's a comeback. The Jags went through this 2 years ago or last year, right? Because the Jags came out of nowhere with Doug Peterson. Trevor Lawrence had his best year. They go to the playoffs. They beat the Chargers. They do the great come from behind win in the playoffs. And they come up short last year. They miss the playoffs. They lose a lot of close games because the schedule's harder. The games are tougher. And they lose more games. That could be the Texans this year. They're not playing a last place schedule. They're playing a first place schedule. And it gets just a little bit tougher. And so, yeah, they could take a step back. And the Colts are just kind of sitting there with Anthony Richardson back healthy. They they're so high on him. It's crazy. Now, I don't know if that's going to translate to wins, but if he's healthy and he's as good as they say he is, then the Colts all of a sudden could be that team that bubbles up and wins 10 games or wins 11 games and gets in the playoffs. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I really like the Colts coach. And if the quarterback's healthy, I kind of like them.
They were in the playoffs last year, and
the Texans were. The Colts weren't, but the Colts made a run. No, did the Colts make it last year? No, Colts didn't make it last year. Colts didn't make it, but
I was thinking about that Texans-Colts game. I thought that was a playoff game, but no, it was to get into the playoffs. Excuse me.
It was You're
right.
Yep.
But they were within spitting distance of the playoffs. So again,
they were certainly competitive. Like Steichen coached his ass off last year. I thought they would stink. Like I literally thought they'd win 4 games, and they were pretty good. So who do we like? So who wins? So who wins it then?
I think the odds are pretty straightforward. I agree with them. I don't think that the Colts are going to win the division. I don't think the Texans are a shoo-in, though. Like, I think 105 is too high. But
the odds aren't great for them. It's not good betting odds. I mean, the odds are good, but there's no money in there. If you're a Vegas gambler, it's like there's no.
That's what I mean by high.
Yeah.
Forgive me. I could see the Jaguars making a run for it. I could see them taking it.
I think you and I agree. I think we agree. I think I like Jacksonville to win the division. Go ahead.
Trevor Lawrence was injured like in the last half of the season last year. And usually when that happens, you see quarterbacks want to come back and prove something, that they can make it. You know what I mean? Like he might come back with not only just, I'm Trevor Lawrence, but have a fire in his belly that's really going to push things through.
So we'll take the Jags to win the division. I'm with you. I'll take the Jags. I'm going to take the Colts to finish second in the division. Maybe go 9-8, maybe 10-7. I think the Texans are going to be okay, but I think they're going to take that sophomore slump a little bit. They're going to lose some tough games against good teams. They're going to play some good games. It really smells like the Vikings last year. In a lot of ways, right? The Vikings won all the coin flip games. They won all the one-score games 2 years ago. And everybody's like, well, they're running the whole thing back. The system's the same. The coach is the same. The team's the same. I mean, you got to expect it's different. The schedule's different. The teams are different. Everything's just a little different. And it doesn't always sync up and be perfect, right? And so I think the Texans will have some learning curves and some bumps. And I think they will fall back to like an 8-9 type season. They will respond and they will become a good team again in 2 years. But I think I would not be shocked if the Texans fell back a little bit this year. Would not be surprised. AFC West, your favorite division. The AFC West is interesting. The Chiefs are minus 270. So they are far and away the best odds to win a division as far as what Vegas, there's no money in it for Vegas. So they're going minus 270. So you got to bet $270 to win 100. The Chargers are plus 390. The Raiders are plus 1,000. The Broncos are plus 2,000.
That's funny.
Do we just think the Chiefs are going to win this division, or is there a chance that the Chargers are better than we think, or that the Raiders are better than we think? I think the Broncos will have some moments where they're going to be tough, but I think they're still the 4th best team in this division, I think. But is it just the Chiefs to lose, or is there something there?
The thing about the Chiefs is that they are proven and they didn't make any major changes in the offseason. Like, it's not like they got a new coach. It's not like they got a new quarterback. It's not none of that. So it's same old for the Chiefs. With that said, last year they were pretty competitive. Like, they almost lost the top seed in the division. But do I think
they lost some games too? Raiders on Christmas Day. Yeah. I mean, they were vulnerable. I think people forget that they were vulnerable during the season.
I think the Chargers are going to surprise us because of Jim Harbaugh. I think Justin Herbert with a legitimate coach is going to be a delightful surprise and might cause some shockwaves in this division. I think that the Broncos have to still iron some things out. I mean, they have a rookie quarterback that I think, are they starting with Bo Nix?
They are going to start with Bo Nix. Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, their quarterback situation is all up in the air and kind of messy. I mean, to start with a rookie is always like, but I don't think 2,000 plus 2,000.
It's a nice bet. Bet 100, win 2,000. Not a bad bet if you wanted to do that. You got $100 you want to throw down to win 2,000 on the Broncos to win the division. You don't feel good about that?
I don't think they're winning the division, but I don't think they're so sucky as to not have that low of a chance, if that makes sense.
I don't think this division's as bad as the Vegas odds makers want you to believe that it is.
I agree.
I think the Chiefs win the division. Like, I'll be clear. I think the Chiefs are still going to win the division. I don't think anybody's going to take that away from them. But I don't think this is going to be one of these years where the Chiefs go 6-0 in the division and they get 13 wins and they cruise to the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that could happen. I just think that they're going to be in a lot tougher games than people are giving it credit for. The Raiders played well for Antonio Pierce last year.
Yes.
And I think Gardner Minshew is better than Aiden O'Connell. Is Gardner Minshew a 13-win division-winning quarterback? No. But do I think he's better than what they had? Yes. And if Antonio Pierce can do the things that he did well, the Raiders could be a 500 team, could be decent. The Broncos, I think, will improve. Sean Payton's a good coach. So, I mean, and they won 7 games with a dead Russell Wilson last year. Like, who's to say that they can't win, 8 again with Bo Nix or 7 with Bo Nix? I think they're probably still the worst in the division. But again, I don't think these are going to be awful years for these teams. And I agree with you. I think the Chargers are going to be pretty good pretty quickly because Jim Harbaugh doesn't have losing. Like, he doesn't show up and it takes 3 years. Like, he shows up and they're good right away. Everywhere he's ever gone, whether it was the University of San Diego, whether it was Stanford, whether it was the 49ers, whether it was Michigan, whether it's going to be here in LA, he just doesn't show up and they go 5-11 or something like that. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. He took over a train wreck in San Francisco, and they were in the playoffs the first year he took over the job. And I think he's going to be fine. The players love him. The responses have been really good out of there, but I think the Chiefs will still win this division. But I think there's going to be a lot of interesting matchups in the division. I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
Yes.
Do you think, so can the Chargers make the playoffs?
Can the Chargers make the playoffs? It's going to depend on, how other places iron out. Like, you look at, the AFC North, which we're going to get into soon. To get into the playoffs, the AFC North, you really have to have a very high win record. Like, it is difficult to break into the playoffs.
That's going to be a tough division. That's a fight. So every one of those teams.
Oh, yeah. So it's going to be a matter of who doesn't get in the playoffs in the other divisions. Like, do the Chargers, say, beat out, like, this will be a far cry, but do they beat out someone like the Dolphins, for example? Do they beat out someone like the Texans? That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, you're right. If the East is as good as people think it is with those top 3 teams, and say everybody takes, maybe I'm wrong on the Texans and everybody's good in the AFC South this year. Well, we're already running out of spaces, right? We're running out of dance partners for spots in the playoffs if that's the case. So they're going to need to play their ass off. And you're right. Somebody from the East is going to have to fall off. Somebody from the South is going to have to fall off. We'll have to see how that plays itself out. I'm interested to watch, though. I think that Chargers team is the most interesting team, like one of the 5 most interesting teams to watch this season. I'm going to be really curious to see how they do.
Which I never thought I would say.
But I'm fascinated to see them in the afternoons, like, because those are the kinds of games you get on CBS in the 3:00 window. You're going to get a lot of Chargers games because Jim Harbaugh's a draw. I think I'm going to be in. I'm going to watch a lot of those games, I think, because I want to see what they can do.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go to the AFC North. As you said, it is, I think, a very competitive looking division on paper. We'll see just how competitive it is, but here it is. The Ravens are plus 145. Bet 100 to win $145. Bengals 165. Browns plus 450. Steelers plus 750. So you're basically getting 7.5 to 1 on your money to go with the Steelers to win the division. The Steelers are interesting because the preseason wasn't super great for Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. And I think this is a do or die year for the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. I kind of thought that was last year, and they brought Tomlin back. I think Tomlin's a good coach, but he hasn't won a playoff game in a long time. And he's got some playoff losses now that are starting to get on his resume where it's like, bro, we haven't won a playoff game in a long time. It's been a lot of years since we've had any kind of playoff success. Is this the year for the Steelers that it all falls apart, or can Mike Tomlin kind of rally them and get them into this mix?
It feels like Mike Tomlin is like the Sean McDermott of the AFC North in that respect, where you feel like if there are any cracks in the team, I hate to say it because, again, he is a great coach, but it would be there for what you just said, for that reason. You can be consistent like a Sean McDermott, but it ain't results. You know what I mean? So yeah, it would be a difficult thing to see, but again, maybe, but that said, I don't think they're going to absolutely tank. I think
no. I don't think they can tank.
Right. But yeah, this will be an interesting year for the Steelers. They would have to make a decision after this season for sure.
They need to win, I think, 10, 11 games, get in the playoffs, win a playoff game for us to think about Tomlin coming back. That's what I think, because they changed out the offensive coordinator at the end of last season. They brought in Russell Wilson. They brought in Justin Fields. They have players at the running back position that they really like. Najee Harris is a good back. They have George Pickens. They like the pieces they have on offense. And defensively, they got TJ Watt, one of the best in the league. And so you start looking around and you're going, well, hey, we should have enough talent to win here, right? With the players we have. But this division's loaded. When you start looking at Baltimore and you say, well, they're bringing Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and, the tight ends are coming back. Their wide receivers still stink, but they find a way to win a bunch of games every single year.
Lamar Jackson is sometimes their wide receiver if push comes to shove.
He really is. I mean, and the Browns last year looked dead in the water when Deshaun Watson got hurt. And it was kismet with Joe Flacco. It was amazing. And now you wonder if they can do that again with Deshaun Watson this time. And then the Bengals with Burrow back healthy. Jamar Chase still isn't there yet. He hasn't signed the contract yet, but CeeDee Lamb just signed yesterday, I think. So now that he's signed, I have to think Chase will sign very, very soon. But this division is just going to be really, really tough. And I don't know if the Steelers can do this.
The AFC North is always a bloodbath, and it's always fun to watch for that reason. The thing about the Bengals is they start off slow, and then they really pick up steam.
They do. You're right.
So it'll be interesting how they respond this year. Now, I hope that Joe Burrow is better this year, that he's healthy all year. I want to see that, because when the Bengals do not have Joe Burrow, they're not fun to watch. I'm sorry. But do I think that they have a chance to not make the playoffs again? It's only going to depend on how they play in the beginning of the season. Because, you look at last year, and wasn't it the first game they benched Burrow? He's not.
He had injuries like crazy. He was never healthy. He never was healthy last year.
Yeah. But yeah, the fickleness is there though. We'll have to see. And don't get me wrong, Joe Burrow is a good quarterback, but are the Bengals a consistent enough team to really bring it now in the playoffs?
Well, they got to make some hay the first month of the season is where they got to make their hay, right? Because they open against the Patriots at home. Got to win that game. Got to. Then you got to go on the road, and this should be awesome, against Kansas City, a 3:00 game in the afternoon, week 2. But then you're home to the Washington Commanders, and you're on the road at Carolina. You should go 3-1 at worst the first month of the season. And if you pull the upset in Kansas City and you're 4-0, then it's on, for the Bengals at that point. And I just think like it's a really good schedule to start the year for them. And if Burrow's healthy, you're right. You cannot afford to get off to a slow start when that is the schedule that you have coming out of the gates.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. So do you like them to win it, or is this Baltimore?
I feel like Baltimore, like they have to get something. They're on the precipice of a Super Bowl win almost every year, like getting into the Super Bowl, being favorites in the Super Bowl. At least, you know what I mean?
Agree.
Like, I feel like they have to get there something.
The time is now. I really do agree with you. Just like Tomlin, right? Harbaugh's been there a long time. They've both got their Super Bowl. They both have one. You feel like they both should have like 2 or 3. And I get it. They beat each other up every year, right? I understand that. And they had Belichick in the division or in the conference for a million years too. I also understand that. But I just think like, man, I'd like to see more. I need to see this happen for one of those two this year. I'm not saying Harbaugh's on the hot seat here or anything like that, but I absolutely think this is dude, we need to make a run. We got to get to a Super Bowl. The Bengals have been to a Super Bowl in the last few years. The Browns had the miracle playoff run last year with Joe Flacco. We made a run, but we didn't win. We didn't close the deal. We didn't get the job done. Got to do it this time around.
They have the components to be a Super Bowl team. I think they lost Odell Beckham Jr. to the Dolphins. I think.
Yeah, I don't miss that though. I think he sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think I think he's washed. That guy's a name only. Like, I just don't think he's been good for you. The thing is that the guys they've drafted just haven't panned out. Like, they've been waiting on Rashad Bateman. They've been waiting on some of these guys. And, Andrews is coming off an injury, but they have Isaiah Likely too, the 2 tight ends. I mean, they've been waiting on these guys forever. So I guess we'll see if now is the time. But they have Derrick Henry. If he has anything left, if he has a good season and Lamar has a good season, that running game should be really, really dynamic. Should be really good. We'll see, though. Let's go to the NFC. By the way, who wins that division? Did we say?
Ravens.
You're going Ravens. I'm going to take Cincinnati. I'll take Cincinnati to win the division. I would not be mad. I would not. I like Joe Burrow. Give me a lot of Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow in January is exciting to me. I want that.
Yes.
Thank you. NFC East, Eagles are minus 140. By the way, that was interesting that only one team has a minus odds in the AFC in Kansas City. Phillies minus 140. Cowboys are plus 175. And then the Commanders are plus 1,100. The Giants are plus 1,600. So if you want to throw $100 down on the Commanders, you can get $1,100 back if they win the division. I'm not doing that, by the way, because I think the Commanders and the Giants are not good. We haven't done the NFC over-under podcast yet, but I will just tell you in advance, I don't know what the over-unders are on those two teams yet. I got to look. I am going to say that these two teams are not going to win a lot of games this year. No. This division might be kind of overrated. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I kind of don't like any of these teams. I really don't like any of them.
I'm surprised that they put the Eagles at minus 140 because, again, it's not like they lost some major components last year. They lost Jason Kelce, but they still have Jalen Hurts. They still have Sirianni. The major components are there, but they were in a serious slump at the end of the season last year, and they have to recover from that.
Yeah, and that's the same group, same everything that slumped last year. You're right.
Yeah, and I saw that preseason game against them versus the Vikings where, okay, it's a preseason game. It doesn't count. They have their B squad out there, but it was still like an absolute blowout. Again, do I think that they're not going to win the division? Not necessarily. I think every year it's going to be neck and neck between them and the Cowboys. But minus 140 is no, a little overrated in my opinion. I'm sorry.
I agree. I don't love Philly. I really don't. Because the coach, I think, got exposed a little last year. I really think Sirianni in big games got outcoached by everybody he went against. They got in that playoff game, and Todd Bowles looked like Vince Lombardi. Like, he just totally ran circles around Philadelphia. They had no answers for Baker Mayfield in the playoff game. And I'm just not there. Like, Jalen Hurts took a step back. Teams started to figure out the tush push. There were some things there and without Jason Kelce, how effective is that play really? I don't know. I still think Hurts is going to score a ton of points, right? They're going to put up points because Hurts is a mobile quarterback who can throw. He can do stuff. I like their wide receivers. Smith and A.J. Brown are still really, really good. Dallas Goedert, etc. So, I like the weaponry. I just don't like the vibe. I don't like the coach. I don't like the vibe. I didn't like the defensive stuff last year. The fact that he fired, all the coordinators. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. I'm going to take Dallas to win this division. Now, let me say this. Do I love Dallas's vibes? No, not really. I'm not super excited about that, but I think McCarthy, for all of his flaws, people have flaws on McCarthy. I think McCarthy's a better coach than Sirianni. I just do. And I think hiring Mike Zimmer to be the defensive coordinator where he can just coach defense, I think that's going to be a positive. Like, Dan Quinn is the new coach at Washington. I think Dan Quinn's a fine defensive coordinator. I don't think he's an amazing defensive coordinator. And I think he'll prove to be a fine head coach, but not an amazing head coach even the second time around. I just think that Zimmer's usually a pretty darn good defensive coach. Usually. Now, I could be 100% wrong. Game could pass him by, but I don't mind that hire. I actually think that's an okay hire. Defensively, I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to win enough games. They're like, but they didn't make any upgrades offensively, and they have Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle as the running backs. Very fair. I understand that. That doesn't sound very good on paper, but I like CeeDee Lamb. I think Dak's good enough to win enough games. I think they're going to win enough to win the division. I'll take Dallas to win the division. Not pretty, and I don't think any of these teams are Super Bowl contenders, but I think Dallas wins this division. Philly might squeak as a wild card. The Giants stink. The Giants absolutely stink. And the Commanders, although I will say this, I'm actually kind of excited to watch the Commanders a little bit this year because Jaden Daniels sounds, or at least feels like to me, like he could be that interesting quarterback to watch, right? They may not win a ton of games, right? But he could be like what Kyler Murray was as a rookie, where you're like, man, this guy's electrifying. I don't know if it translates to wins, but I got to watch this guy play all the time. And if that's the case, I'm in. I'm in on that. That could be really fun.
Fair. Everything you said, I pretty much agree with. And I'm going to say this about Dallas. Its only major weakness that could prevent it from being a division leader is the fact that it's not entirely a consistent team, at least as from what I saw last year. They weren't consistent. But I think that they have fewer obstacles going into this season than the Eagles. And, my Eagles dad is going to hate me for this, but I'm going to put Cowboys in the division lead. So, again, it's all going to boil down to, can the Eagles overcome their challenges? And that's yet to be seen. Because for a long time before the big slump, before things really hit the fan, they were like superstars, And if you're superstars forever, it's really going to boil down to, okay, now you see a challenge. Can you face it? You know what I mean?
I think that was the interesting part of last year, because you'd listen to Jason Kelce on their podcast and they would go, and Travis would pick on Jason Kelce, but it just felt like even he would go on to the podcasts and say, like, and doesn't feel like he have any answers. Like, there was just like, hey, I don't know why we're losing. I don't know why we commit 1 million penalties. I don't know why we turn the ball over so much. They
have Matt Patricia of all people on their team.
Is he still there? Because I feel like didn't they get a new guy? I don't know.
Let me look it up really quickly.
You vamp. So, but while you're thinking of this, are you a Dak person? Do you like Dak or no? Because it feels like Dak is very polarizing. Like, you either like Dak or you don't like Dak.
Matt Patricia is no longer with the Eagles. Okay.
Uh-huh.
You know
So he's
what?
working at a Denny's somewhere.
You know what? I rescind my answer. I think the Eagles may actually have a chance to take the division.
The addition by subtraction move. I like that, Allison. Very good. Very good.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, if they can iron out their kinks from last year and overcome the Kelsey loss, they absolutely could take the division. I don't hate Dak Prescott. I don't have a huge opinion of him. You know, I'm like, whatever.
You'd be the only one. Everybody has a huge opinion, it seems like. You'd be the only one. You and me both, because I don't have a huge opinion either. But everybody, it seems like they do. Everybody does.
His play, you know, it's fine. Anyway, moving on.
Would you start him on your fantasy team? All right, here we go. Next one. This one's odd. NFC South. The Falcons are the Vegas odds favorites, minus 145. Then the Buccaneers at plus 290, the Saints at plus 550, and the Panthers are plus 1,100. I mean, I think we can agree we think Carolina's probably still the worst team in the division.
That's surprising, though, that they're plus 1,100 when the Giants are plus 1,600 and the Bucs are plus 2,000. There's no chance that the Panthers are leading the division. No chance.
No, the plus 1,100 is those are the odds of they're not winning the division. And if you want to put $100 down on them, you can win 1,100 back because they're that high odds. Like Vegas is so confident they won't win the division that they are.
But no, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like I feel like the Panthers should be like a plus 1,600, plus 1,800 kind of thing because it is that level of unlikeliness.
They should be even higher.
Yeah.
I kind of agree because I like their coach. Like they hired Dave Canales, who was the OC in Tampa last year. And I thought Tampa was going to stink last year. I'll be honest with you. I got it wrong. And I think a lot of that's because Dave Canales really did a good job with Baker Mayfield. Like he took something or he took nothing because Baker looked dead, washed, finished, and got them to the playoffs as the offensive coach. And clearly they are looking at him to go like, hey, Bryce Young, here you go. Please make him something so that we don't look really stupid here, that we gave away Caleb Williams to the Bears because we like this guy so much. Please prove us right by getting something out of Bryce Young. I think they're going to see some improvement. Is he a good quarterback? I'm not ready to go there yet. I got to see a lot more. But do I think Dave Canales is a good coach that I think could get this? I'm at least interested to see. I'm at least interested to watch. They still don't have any talent. That's the biggest issue. They still just don't have any players. And I don't think you can get past that. The best coach in the world can't do much when there's not enough talent there. So they're still, to me, the worst team. The interesting one, though, is with you. Atlanta at minus 145. You got to bet 100. You got to bet 145 to get 100 back from Atlanta. I sort of get it. I understand it because there's a lot of enthusiasm about Penix, about Kirk Cousins, about the fact that they traded for Matthew Judon. Raheem Morris is kind of this. He's kind of reinvented himself as a coach. He's a player's coach. He's been in winning organizations as a coordinator after getting fired in Tampa as a head coach. I get the enthusiasm. I'm not ready to call them the division winners just yet. Are you?
Again, it's like with the Jets and Darren Rodgers. Kirk Cousins is coming off of an Achilles injury, and he's not as old as Rodgers, but older as a quarterback. Right. And granted, his Achilles injury is newer relatively than Aaron Rodgers is. So it's really going to be how well does he feel on the field, really? And again, I don't know. I really don't know. I think that Atlanta has a pretty good chance of being the division leader. But again, as you said, the Bucs were in the playoffs last year, and there's no reason for them not to be this year either. technically. I mean, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if the Bucks were the division leaders this year again. But yeah, they're neck and
Losing
neck.
the offensive coordinator, Carolina, that hurts a little bit. I don't dispute that. Baker having 2 good years in a row, we don't know that. I think they're betting on, my guess is this, and I don't know if you agree. I think they're betting on the fact that Bijan Robinson is going to emerge in this new offense with the new coach. He's going to become the player that they thought he was going to be when they drafted him last year. Same with Kyle Pitts. When they took Kyle Pitts 2 years ago, or they were like, oh, Kyle Pitts is going to reinvent the tight end position. He's going to be this amazing guy. And I've been waiting. My fantasy teams have been waiting for this guy to become the player that everybody said he was going to. I've yet to see it. Drake London. Everybody, I watched Drake London in our fantasy drafts this weekend go for like $25 in both leagues. And I'm like, I haven't seen Drake London do anything. Nothing. I've seen nothing from Drake London that would indicate that he's ready to do that. Now, if they're right and all 3 of these guys take the step forward, then yeah, they're going to be really, really good. But to me, that's a big ask to expect all 3 of those guys to just explode and become great players. I don't see that very often. Do you?
Yeah, the NFC South is a trick. Last year they all freaking sucked. They all sucked. To the point where even this year, to lead the division in the NFC South, that's a low bar. Congratulations, right?
I think they're projecting Atlanta to win 11 games, though, 12 games. That's a big leap for them. That's huge.
That's a lot. I don't think they're going to win that many games. But could they win the division? Yeah, I could see that. I'd put my money on that. Not literally, people. I'm not actually going to gamble. But, yeah. So.
You're not going to put down $145 to win 100? Come on, Allison. It's easy money.
I'm going to say the Falcons will be the division winner, but I'm not going to be super invested in the NFC South. It's going to be, I don't think there are going to be any exciting teams from them this year. I think
there's not a lot of interesting, the Falcons are at least an interesting storyline. I think that's interesting. So I think they're worth a watch in that regard, but are any of the other teams that interesting? Like the Saints, there's no juice with the Saints, like none whatsoever. No juice with Carolina other than the new coach. You want to be excited for him. You hope for the best. But yeah, the Bucks were my pick to win. I'll take the Bucks to win the division.
Okay.
I will. I think Atlanta probably will. I'm going to take the Bucks though to be a little different just because I guess like the Bucks to me have less unproven parts.
Sure.
Like Mike Evans is a proven wide receiver. Chris Godwin is a proven wide receiver. They've got Rachaad White at running back, who's a proven running back. Baker Mayfield had a good season last year. Todd Bowles can coach defense.
Yeah.
Not much else, but he can coach defense. So there are like proven commodities in Tampa. It's not exciting. It's not sexy. It doesn't wow you, right? But Atlanta is one of those teams where it's like, I got to see it first. I got to see it to believe it. Some people are buying them sight unseen. I need to see it before I buy it. I'll take Tampa to win the division.
They're certainly not negative 145. I will say that.
So. Yeah, to me, Tampa's a better bet at plus. If you're going to give me plus 270 or plus whatever it is, 270 or 290.
290, yeah.
You're giving me almost 3-1 on my money. Like if I'm going to bet, I like that better. That's just me.
Yeah.
How about the NFC West? The 49ers are minus 190. I think they have like the best odds to win this year. The Rams are plus 330. The Seahawks are plus 700. The Cardinals are plus 1,300. Where do you see it?
Those teams, none of them made sweeping major big old changes this season, this preseason.
Yeah, Seahawks changed out the head coach. That was about it.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that's pretty big.
But that's still, it's a big thing, but you're right. As far as the roster goes, it wasn't like a massive roster overhaul. It was a change of the head coach.
Exactly. Yeah, and I don't think any of these teams are going to tank aside from the Cardinals.
And I think
But
the Cardinals might be interesting.
isn't Kyler Murray coming back?
Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about a guy with hype? In my fantasy drafts, Marvin Harrison was going for he was like the third or fourth highest paid guy in the auction drafts. He was getting paid more than proven guys. He went for more than Jamar Chase. He went for more than CeeDee Lamb. He went for more than the only, I think, two guys went higher than him were Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown in my last draft. That's it. Everybody loves Marvin Harrison Jr. Everybody loves him.
Wow. Yeah, okay. As I said, though, I don't think this is going to be a very interesting, even neck and neck division. I think the 49ers are going to take it. But the 49ers are like the Ravens in the sense of when are they going to get theirs? They keep going to the Super Bowl. God bless them. But they're one of those teams that is consistently good, but they never win the big one, really. Or, in Baltimore's case, they don't even get to the big one, unfortunately. But, I'm not pressing my fingertips down and being like, oh my God, who's going to win the division? How is this going to pan out? What I will say, though, is that I think the West, the NFC West, is really going to be the one that, it'll be interesting if they how they affect the playoff roster in the NFC.
Yeah, the West, I agree. I think the West is interesting. I think all of these teams are interesting. The Niners are obviously, I think, the team to beat, and I think they will win the division, so I agree with you there. I think the Cardinals are frisky this year. I think there's something about them that's very interesting to me, and maybe that's the rookie wide receiver, but if Kyler Murray's healthy and you get, James Conner's a solid back and you got Marvin Harrison at wide receiver, all of a sudden that offense feels like it can score on lots of teams. And if they're in these really entertaining games, I don't think that defensively they're going to make enough plays to beat teams consistently. But I don't think they're going to just get rolled up on 31-3 every Sunday. You're going to have to play a good game to beat them. And I think they're the team that's going to take a step forward
we have
this
to remember,
year.
Pardon me, we have to remember that the Cardinals beat the Eagles last year.
Yeah.
And granted, it was the slumpy Eagles, but they beat the Eagles nonetheless.
They were pretty competitive when Kyler came back because he was injured that first half of the season and they were playing Josh Dobbs. And even with Josh Dobbs, they were feisty. They were pretty frisky in a lot of games. They weren't blown out of a lot of games. And I thought they were entertaining, if nothing else. And I think they're going to be more entertaining this year. Whether or not that translates to 10 wins, I don't know.
They're an interesting team amongst quote unquote bad teams in the NFL. I think they're the most interesting because you look at the Titans and you're like, oh, they're not going to be blowing anyone out of the water. No way. Or the Panthers or the Cardinals, even though I wouldn't peg them as a good team by any means, there is that bite to them.
Yeah. They're like a bad good team or a good bad team. They're going to be a good bad team.
Yeah, I agree.
They could be the most exciting 7-10 team in the league.
Yeah.
They really, I really think that they're another one of those, if I have an afternoon window game and the Cardinals are playing, I might want to watch that. I might be interested to take that game in. Seahawks are interesting. They've got talent. I don't think they're a flashy team. I don't love Geno. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I'm interested to watch them. And I'm also interested to watch the Rams. If Stafford's healthy, you saw what they did last year. I love what they've got. And McVay is probably the second or third best coach in the league.
Yeah. Again, the Rams are one of those teams that they are very predictable to me. I'm not super interested in the Rams. The Seahawks, it's going to be interesting to see how their head coach is going to pan out. But other than that, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty consistent overall. I guess consistent isn't the right word. Predictable in the NFC West. we're going to get what we've gotten for years, you know?
I think you're right. I agree with you. I think it's Niners to win. And I wonder if this isn't the Niners' last stand. Like, they've got to make it now. It's got to be right now if they're going to do it.
They do. Brock Purdy is young, though. They do have
true.
that.
They are going to have to pay him, though. And if you're going to be paying all these other guys, and that's it. You know, Zach makes this point all the time on the podcast where if you think you have the guy, okay, pay him. But if you don't think you have the guy and you pay him $50-60 million, it's usually not a recipe for success. And I like Brock Purdy, and I think he's done a good job. But is he the guy? I don't know that yet. I don't know if that's the answer. All right. NFC North. The Lions are plus 130. The Packers are plus 200. The Bears are plus 340. The Vikings are plus 850.
It hurts my heart to see the Vikings at plus 850. But
hey, $100 gets you 850, Allison. Come on now.
But I don't disagree with that ranking. I think the Vikings' biggest flaw is that once again, they're going to be inconsistent and unpredictable this year. Like, yes, they do have weapons. Of all the teams that are in last place in all of these division odds, they have some serious weapons.
Yeah.
But their quarterback situation is a shit show. And that's going to affect things. And I'm not looking forward to it.
Darnold has to be, he can't just be serviceable. Like, he has to be good. Here's what
I'm going to say about Darnold. Here's what I'm going to say about the Vikings in general. The Vikings, and this is both a blessing and a curse, is that they never are a team that just straight up bombs. Like, they put you at the edge of your seat. Like, they are a roller coaster kind of team. You know, they could get a winning record. Who knows? Or they could get a losing record. But either direction this year, winning or lose, over or under 500, it's not going to be major in either direction.
Yeah, there's a little part of you that wishes like they could go 2-15 one year and get the number one pick and take the Caleb Williams draft. You know, of course, the year we do that will be the year that there's no quarterbacks and it's a shit draft and there's no talent in there. But you'd like to have. There's never been like a bottom out point, really. Like the bottom out is 6-10 or it's 6-11 or 5-11 or whatever the number is. It's never like, oh shit, we went 1-16 and we're really bad, and now we got the number one pick and we're going to take the hot shot quarterback and restart. It just never happens that way. And go ahead.
I will say, JJ McCarthy busting his meniscus, sucky as that was, I'm glad that there isn't going to be this hemming and hawing this year of if he's going to start or not.
I agree.
I want him to sit out. I want him to learn. It's going to be, from Sam Darnold. But, I compared him to Mahomes during the draft in kind of a jokey way, admittedly. Like, Mahomes is also the 10th pick, but McCarthy, he is watching a quarterback that doesn't have a stellar reputation and has been hopping around teams, and every team is like, oh, we have this guy now. Oh, he's bleh. Same with Mahomes. When he started, he sat out and
he sat a year
from Alex Smith, which everyone thought was like, oh my God, we got Alex Smith, but then he turned out to be okay.
And you know what? They thought Smith was a bust, and Andy Reid got something out of Alex Smith, right? Exactly. And all of a sudden, and it worked out.
Exactly my point. Yeah. Kevin O'Connell is not as good of a coach as Andy Reid, of course, but
but people think Kyle Shanahan is, and he spent a year with Kyle Shanahan last year, just learning.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows how things will pan out? He didn't look terrible during the preseason. We won all 3 of our preseason games, which I know we don't take too much credence in the preseason, but we don't throw them away. Jaron Hall looked better than I thought he would.
Playing well is playing well. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's preseason or not. If you go out and you execute and you do what you're supposed to do, you don't have to apologize for that. It doesn't mean you're going to be great, but you don't have to apologize for it.
No. Now, this is going to be a very fickle division. And I'm not just saying this as a Vikings fan. You've said it before when we were doing the NFL logo ranking that the Lions, they were superstars last year. But is their star going to shine again this year? Who's to say? Because again, on paper, we should see the same results on paper. But you think about injuries, you think about, here's the big thing. You look at these great teams. It's not just about them playing well. It's about them overcoming obstacles and course correcting. And when things go down, we know how to respond. And I haven't seen the Lions know how to respond to serious obstacles. Not yet.
It's kind of there's a lot of, again, it goes back to the schedule, right? They're going to play a first place schedule. They're not sneaking up on anybody. Nobody's surprised by the Lions and what they can do. What I will say is I am going to take Detroit to win this division over Green Bay. I don't think Chicago is in the mode of, just like I said about Atlanta. I got to see it first. You got to prove me wrong first before I get you out of the 3 spot. I'll take Detroit to win because, again, they're playing 14 out of 17 games in a dome. I mean, what an advantage for your offense to not have to change much. And I think that they're going to get crowd support at home like they've never had before. Like last year, I really think they were spurred on by the fans just releasing this euphoric release of emotion that had been pent up for years and years and years. And I really think the coach fed off that. The players fed off that. And I think there's a lot of goodwill with the Lions right now. And again, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like Jahmyr Gibbs. I like Jared Goff. I like the coach. We talk about proven commodities. Yes, Green Bay's also got proven commodities. Really like them this year too with the head coach. I think LaFleur is one of the best coaches in the league. I think those two are a neck and a head and above everybody else. And the Vikings, I'd love to be wrong on the Vikes. I'd love to see the Vikes not be last place. I think they're going to be last place because defensively, I don't think they can stop anybody. And I don't think there's enough there offensively with Sam Darnold to be able to overcome the deficits that we're going to be having. And the first 7 games for the Vikings this year, honestly, on the schedule, look absolutely brutal. Like there's a chance we're 2-5 after 7 games this year. I think we'll get better as the season goes. But that early season, you're going to be in it. I mean, there are some wars those first 7 weeks. It's going to be brutal.
We're going to have a wash of a year as a Vikings fan. And next year, we may or may not see JJ McCarthy. Let's hope we do. But it's going to be one of those years. We've seen it before as a Vikings nation. Here's the thing about Caleb Williams. I just want to say, all of these weapons that the Bears got is only going to be as good as Eberflus. Like, I think that if anything, if the Bears tank, I don't think they're a gimme. I don't think that Caleb Williams is this magic missing link that Chicago is wanting. I'm sure he'll do good things. Obviously, he's a good quarterback, really good, obviously, but he's with Eberflus. So
yeah, it's all going to be about what you think. Do you buy the coach or not? All right, so there's our division predictions. Here were the playoff teams last year. Based on what we talked about, who's not going to make the playoffs this year? And again, we want to replace about half, 6 to 7, I'd say. In the AFC, it was Houston, Cleveland, Kansas City, Miami, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. So out of those 7 teams, who's out?
Cleveland, Pittsburgh, maybe Houston.
Okay. I kind of concur.
This is a very competitive conference. And, those teams were the up in the airs.
Yep. I think you flip Cleveland for Cincinnati because I think Cincinnati makes the playoffs this year. I think Jacksonville makes the playoffs. And I'll take the Jets, obviously. And I said the Jets earlier will make the playoffs. So I've got, So for that, I'll say there's a chance another team cracks it, but I'll say Buffalo. So 3 teams out of the East. Right now, I've got 3 teams out of the East: Miami, Buffalo, New York Jets. Pittsburgh sits, Cleveland sits, Houston sits, Jacksonville, the Jets, and Cincinnati come in. 3 teams change out.
If it's not the Jets, then I'm taking the Chargers.
Interesting. So the Chargers with maybe the outside shot to get in and maybe upset somebody.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, the Chargers are interesting. You're right. I should think about that too. Chargers might need to find their way out over Buffalo. Maybe I would take them over Buffalo. Chargers over Buffalo. Indeed. I'll do it. F it. Screw it. Buffalo's out. Chargers in. 4 new playoff teams in the East or in the AFC.
All right.
Here we go. NFC. Tampa. Philadelphia. Detroit. The Rams. Dallas. Green Bay. San Francisco. So if I take 4 out of the AFC, I probably got to take 2 to 3 out of the NFC. Maybe more. What are you going to do?
Man, I do not see both Philly and Dallas.
So one of them is out.
One of them, which is so weird because they're both pretty good teams on paper. But again, it's going to depend on how the Eagles respond after a huge slump last year. I know I put them as the division leader.
Yeah, they kind of have to get in if you're going to say they're the division leader, Allison.
Yeah. But, Dallas is so fickle. They're so fickle.
I would probably say I'll keep Dallas in, and I'd probably even still keep Philly in. I think I'll move out Tampa. No, I got Tampa winning the division. I got to keep Tampa. God damn it. Okay, I got to take the Rams out. So I think if there's going to be a team that doesn't make it, it's probably the Rams. Rams out. And this is where if Atlanta's good, Atlanta can get in as maybe a wild card. Or if Chicago's good, maybe they get into that spot as a wild card. Obviously, I still have Detroit winning. I still have San Francisco winning. Green Bay is the interesting one because I think Green Bay is going to take second in this division, and I think they can make the playoffs. I think I'd probably take them if you're right, if a team's out in the East, it's Philly to me. So I'll take the Rams and Philly out. I'll take them out. I'll add Atlanta and maybe Chicago.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Only reason why I'm keeping Philly is because I put them at the division lead, but I would not be surprised if they didn't make the playoffs this year. I think it would certainly humble their fan base, and they could use that. I could see Falcons getting in. I don't want to say Bears are getting in. I'm not going to go there. But Rams, I do not see making it. If they do, again, I won't be surprised. But again, they're not super. Well, no, they could get in. I changed my mind. Excuse me.
Okay. It's not as easy, is it? It's not as easy.
Here's the thing. I think between the AFC and the NFC, more teams are going to be kicked out of the AFC than the NFC. I think the NFC overall is we're going to see a lot of the same this year, I think, overall in that conference. The AFC is going to be the real game changer, though. Like if we're going to take out teams, I'm more inclined to say 4 teams out in the AFC than two teams even in the NFC. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I'm fascinated by this. I think I want to see this play itself out. We'll try to do a little playoff predictor, you and I, at some point. We'll figure this out. We'll revisit these picks as we go through the season. As we wrap the pod, who's the first coach fired?
First coach fired. Oh my gosh. Who's on the hot? I want to say Sirianni.
Nick Sirianni.
I think so, because I think that Philly is starting to get sick of him.
I think so too.
When Philly is sick of the head coach, he's on the hot seat. If the fans are bitching about him, yeah. No,
I agree with you.
If he was on the hot seat going into the season, I'm trying to think of other coaches who are on the hot seat going into the season that have not yet already been replaced.
I'm thinking I have guys like, I think if the Jets get off to a bad start, Salah's going to be definitely one of the first guys out if that happens.
Yes. And he's been there forever. So
I think guys like Dennis Allen in New Orleans, who have literally done nothing and have no mojo, have no momentum. You feel like that could be a logical spot for maybe an early season canning if they get off to a bad start.
I don't know.
I could see that.
I don't know if they would kick Dennis Allen out mid-season.
You might be right.
But
what if the Bears stink early? Would
God.
you fire Eberflus? If they were like 1-5, would you fire Eberflus that fast? Would you?
You put so much on Caleb Williams. If I were Chicago, yes, I would absolutely consider a mid-season firing. But again, when you have a hotshot quarterback like that, you have to think about who are you going to replace Eberflus with. That's the thing. All these head coaches that you fire because they're not delivering, who do you replace them with?
I don't think it's about replacing them that year. I think it's about what's out there.
Yeah.
Like if you're close, like if you're the Jets, you would fire Saleh and bring in Belichick if you felt like you were close.
Yeah.
At the end of the season. Same thing in New York, right? If you think the Giants are decent, you'd fire Dable and you'd bring in Belichick. The problem is the Giants aren't decent. The Giants stink. I think, if you would have asked me like a month ago, I think I would have thought McCarthy. I would have thought Mike McCarthy in Dallas would have made a lot of sense. Now I don't think so. I just think like, they've got all the pieces and, I think they're going to ride this out for the year no matter what. One thing that Jerry Jones doesn't do a lot of, like a lot of people think Jerry Jones just fires guys and he's crazy. He really doesn't. Like he doesn't fire dudes. He doesn't do it mid-season. He let Jason Garrett go for 9 years. He's let McCarthy go for 3-4 years now. He'll ride it out with a coach. He doesn't make a lot of mid-season weird moves. That's not him. So I would throw that out. I like the Sirianni pick with you. I kind of agree. I really think that if it's not working there, they'll make a move. And Dennis Allen be second.
Yeah, Philadelphia is an aggressive team. Like if you have the roster that you have and you're still in the slump, and you saw in the preseason game, again, a blowout against the Vikings of all people.
If they come out and they're a little bit slow out of the blocks, like they got to play Green Bay in Brazil on a Friday night next week, which absolutely sucks balls. That sucks. I mean, what a horrible way to start the season on a Friday night. I mean, that absolutely bites.
I know. It's going to be
in Brazil, but that game's weird. That game's very weird. You're in this weird neutral stadium on a Friday night. There's a good if Green Bay could beat them anyway. It doesn't matter where it is. But if Green Bay goes to Brazil and they handle that adversity better than Philly by like a lot and they win by 2 scores, then I wouldn't be surprised if the voltage, they're not going to fire him after week 1, but you'll start to hear the rumblings quickly like, oh, I don't know about this guy. Oh, I don't know about Sirianni's, hey, if they're at week 4 or 5 and things are dicey, don't be surprised if they make a move, you'll start to hear that chatter if it starts poorly for the Eagles, no doubt about it.
For sure.
Lastly, Super Bowl pick. Let's do it right now. Who wins it? Against who?
I'm so tired of the Chiefs. I don't think they're going to get a three-peat. Maybe they could get into the Super Bowl, but just because I'm so tired of them, I'm going to say the Ravens win it because
I like that.
I want them to get something.
The Ravens beat the 49ers or the Ravens play the 49ers in somebody has to win this Super Bowl.
Yes.
That would be exciting. If that's the case, I'll take San Francisco. I think I'll say San Francisco finds a way to win this year and win the whole thing.
I hope that too. I'll say San Francisco. Screw it.
I love it. That's great.
It's between Baltimore and San Fran, the showdown that we were expecting last year. But San Fran finally gets theirs after, 30 years.
Yep.
So.
And then they pay Brock Purdy a lot of money. He's not as good as they think, and they fall off a table within 2 years. We'll see.
For just a fun thought experiment, what would be an interesting Super Bowl? Like two teams that are not necessarily favorites, like the Chiefs, like the Ravens, like not the usual suspects, but wouldn't that be an interesting matchup?
It would be really interesting if, say, Detroit got in with their offense and they played against a team that had like a different, more physical game or something like that. I'd love to see a rematch of Chiefs Lions in a Super Bowl. I think that'd be really entertaining, but I would love to see, it's not going to happen, but I would love to see a Chargers Lions Super Bowl because I would love to see Jim Harbaugh in a Super Bowl and how goofy he would be. That would be entertaining to see him in another one of those. But I think a Ravens Lions Super Bowl where you have Lamar and you have that, so you got the star power. You also have the great story of Detroit. You've got two coaches that have some big personalities in John Harbaugh and Dan Campbell. I think it would be great. Like I think that would be an amazing Super Bowl storyline wise. It would be a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. And Detroit was spitting distance from a Super Bowl.
Some would argue they probably should have done it.
They should have. Anyway.
Green Bay would be kind of fun too. I think it would be fun if obviously it's Green Bay versus the Jets. If Aaron Rodgers takes the Jets to the Super Bowl and goes against Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love in the ultimate FU game, I mean, that would be the NFL scriptwriters couldn't do any better than that. That would be the best one.
I would be a little pissed off if the Green Bay Packers went to the Super Bowl with Jordan Love on his second year as a starting quarterback. That would piss me off a little bit. But I agree. I agree with your logic there.
It would be incredible. It would be awesome.
Can you imagine on that note, the Jets versus the Cowboys? Rodgers versus McCarthy?
Ooh, yeah. I could listen to that. And Dak trying to shut up the haters and Jerry just walking around flipping double birds, on the field in the Super Bowl if the Cowboys win, just running around, just both middle fingers up in the air as he's 89 million years old and he knows he's going to be wandering off into the sunset, but he'd ride off a champion. Boy, that'd be something. Allison, I love it. Can't wait to watch these predictions play themselves out during the season. Always good having you on the pod. Once again, you can find her AllisonWonchoba.medium.com. You can read her articles, read her writing, read her stuff. She's out doing all the big stuff, writing screenplays, writing scripts, writing all that good stuff, getting out there doing things. Support her in her endeavors, would you? Thank you. I would appreciate you. Allison, great work. Until next time. For Allison, this is Tim saying keep your head up, and we'll see you.